Hey everybody, we're back for another show of BongaDadaBonga, and really excited to be talking about women and party politics, the subject that never gets really uncovered, but is whispered about in the background. I'm your host today. I'm Rose Lukalo. We've been with you for the last 3 weeks. I'm a journalist. I work as an editor with a fact-checking organization, and I've worked in the media in Kenya. With me is my sister, Mildred, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself. Welcome,
Thank
Mildred.
you, Rose. Thank you very much. Wonderful to be in our platform again. I am a very optimistic Kenyan woman this week. When we are talking politics, a few days to the elections, we have women on the screen. I think this is a good time in the history of women in political leadership. I am a women's rights advocate. I am a feminist, a Pan-African transformational leadership coach, and I am very enthusiastic about women's political participation in all aspects. So thank you very much for all who are going to join us for this conversation that is extremely important for our nation.
Thanks, Mildred. And let's see who's we've got this week as we talk about the hot subject of political parties and how they work with women. What are they going through behind the scenes? To help us interrogate the issue is Mercy Mwangi. I will invite her to tell us a little bit about who she is and where she's from, what the work she does is.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mercy Mwangi. I'm the program coordinator for the Kenya Women Parliamentary Association, popularly known as KEWOPA. KEWOPA is a caucus of all women parliamentarians at the national level, and it brings together women both from the National Assembly and the Senate. So as a program coordinator, one of the things that I do is support the women parliamentarians technically so that they're able to carry out their mandates effectively. And so with that, I'm very passionate also, just like Mildred said, in seeing women participate in politics and other areas of decision making, and especially public office, because that's where major and key decisions are made. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making this time, Mercy, and we're really, really looking forward to exploring this subject with you. Also with us today, we have our brother, Irungu. Welcome, Irungu. Maybe you can tell those who are joining us who you are, what you do, why you're here.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody, and special greetings to you, Rose, Mildred, and Mercy, and of course, behind the scenes, the effervescent Dashanaba, otherwise known as the Queen Mother. When she calls, we all show up. So my name is Irungu Houghton. I serve as the Amnesty International Kenya Executive Director. I'm also a feminist, and it's such a refreshing panel to be on, because I sometimes have to fight with manals, and I'm not sure whether I was brought in as the token man on this one, just so that we wouldn't all be arrested under the 2/3 rule. But just to say that I'm a feminist, I have believed in women's political participation. I believe in women's economic empowerment, and I believe that the future will be gender equal. The question is just when, and I think that's the challenge for all of us: is how do we accelerate the end of patriarchy and the introduction of a society that is free and equal for all genders.
You're not here as a token. Please believe us. We did want you here. We chose you very deliberately, but we really are looking for people who can really explore the issue with us from that gendered perspective. And that's why you are here, because we know you're able to do that. I will be remiss if I don't thank Professor King, Dashanaba King, who's behind the scenes working the wheels for us. This is actually her idea. She asked us, what are we doing for women aspirants in whatever little way we can? And we showed up. I am the host. I've been the host for 3 weeks, and there were others before me, Acheng, Aneko, and others. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Mildred to set us off on this subject. It's a very sensitive subject, and we've broken with our tradition of inviting aspirants, because some of the subjects that we want to dig into today are things that aspirants told us they cannot discuss, and we want them uncovered. We don't want to leave anything hidden as we go into the election, because there's some wheeler dealing going on behind the scenes, and we don't want to leave that pending as a pending discussion. So Mildred, where do we start?
Oh, thank you, Rose. You know, as we speak, there is a woman aspirant whose husband was kidnapped this week, and I don't think he has been found. And this is purely pegged on her aspirations to vie. I know that Irungu is privy to this information, but I also know that in the spaces where I am with women political aspirants, this kind of fear is such a reality. So this kind of fear compounded by many other things, the fact that you have decided to vie, you have decided to run, your family becomes a target for God knows who, and the fact that you're running and annoying somebody else who doesn't want you running, there you become, a marked person. We know that women politicians have so much that they go through that is never really out in the open. In the last elections, if you may recall, Rose, we had a politician, an aspirant, who was attacked, raped, and brutally violated by her opponents somewhere in Meru or in Embu. Now, what I know for a fact that doesn't reach us or doesn't make it to the news is how women political aspirants, politicians are intimidated, are violated, and maybe for whatever reason, the news is not covered with the same intensity, with the same priority. But not only this, what concerns me is what goes on in political parties, platforms, when women were being attacked, and what they are forced to bow to. I know that I have been supporting a candidate in the last election, for example, who at some point we had to move her children out of that area so that we can take them to safety for 3 months as she campaigned towards the election, because her 2 children were targeted because of her aspirations. But not only that, when we look at political parties nominations, I don't know whether I am up to date with the information on the 2/3 representation in the nominations. I know we haven't reached. If we have reached it, it would have reached me by now, and I would be dancing on the table. I know yes. That's not the case in our political parties. So it is really, Rose, it's a mixture of a lot of things. When I sit with women political aspirants, I affirm them so much, because I don't even think I have the courage to face up what they face up by just standing and declaring and saying that I have to run. This has to stop. It has to stop. My excitement for this week, when I introduced myself, I said, look at us. We have a deputy presidential debate with 3 women out of 4. I mean, that is such a high. Before I get into any analysis, I think we have lived through a very historical moment that we need to keep steering forward. And yes, I do affirm platforms such as Kewopa for what it is they really struggle to do and to incorporate, to intervene when it comes to women political aspirants. And I do acknowledge the hawk-eyedness of Amnesty International, Amnesty Kenya, and where it is they're shining the light on where violations are being done and where women are being disadvantaged. This is my takeoff, Rose. I know that there is that we know of what women go through, but there is so much that we don't know, that the price that women political aspirants pay. Why do women have to pay such a high price to run for office? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you brought up the fact that we have 3 women deputy president aspirants. And I think it was very interesting that during the debates, Irungu spoke of usually having panels. After, I don't know if it was because we had women on the panel, we had an all-women panel of experts discussing, you know, the debate and giving feedback on it. It was very interesting. It was very refreshing. But as you say, the issues that are emerging, and I would like to invite Irungu to help me to begin to tease them out before we ask Mercy really just to respond to what's happening on the ground. Irungu, if you're there, you can
Yes, I am. So there's a bit of a delay, and so I think there are a lot of things we can discuss tonight, and I think I really look forward to the conversation. First, of course, is that you know, we know how important it is to get women into positions of oversight, whether it be the county assemblies, whether it be the National Assembly or the Senate. That you know, being able to oversight and to pass laws and to be able to approve budgetary expenditure is so critical, not just for you know, for women, but really for men and women. And having women in those positions who are competent, who are clear about things like, for example, just this gender disaggregated impact of policies and procedures is just so important. The second line of thought is really having strong women candidates in offices of executive power, whether it be at the county level or at the national level. And once again, how important it is to be able to see competent women be able to lead ministries. Now, one of the things that we can say about the Jubilee administration is that although they did not meet the 2/3 gender you know, threshold, there was an attempt to put in competent women. We've seen women, you know, basically handle a number of important dockets, whether it be Ministry of Defense, whether it be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at some point the Ministry of Interior, and the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Industry, or Trade and Industry. The women are extremely capable and are able to manage large ministries which have impact on millions and millions of Kenyans. So I think the first thing is just to say that, you know, this is the moment, really. I mean, we have to get the vote out in a way in which it actually creates a gender balanced, a gender parity within the process. And we have 6 opportunities. Every one of us who are registered have 6 opportunities. Now, it depends a little bit on where we are, whether we're going to have strong women candidates. I mean, women with vision, women with a clear track record, a competency, and a vision for the role that they're going to play. So I think, you know, for anybody listening who's thinking, but Irungu, what about all the, you know, are you saying that we should just elect women? No, I'm saying elect competent women. And the good news is, as we saw in the deputy presidential debate, there are so many women who can come forward and articulate a vision and offer themselves to serve Kenyans. I think the third thing really is in the last few weeks of the campaigns, as Mildred has said, we have to shine a spotlight on the violence that is taking place, the intimidation that's happening online, the negotiated out of the primaries of several women. And I'm sure there are a number of women who are running as independent candidates because essentially the consensus based, and I don't really think it was consensus. I think what you saw there was elite deals that robbed voters, particularly voters, party members, the opportunity to actually say, in my party, I would like this person to represent me. I like this person to go to the ballot box to be elected by Kenyans. And I think, you know, we saw that. I'm looking forward very much to hearing Mercy speak, because I think a month ago I saw a conversation that Kewopa had with the women of Garissa, where they said, you know, for them, the primaries were a disaster. They were negotiated out. And therefore, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of women who will just not come through the party structures. But the opportunity, I guess, remains within the independence, the independent platform. And we do hope that we see a lot of women come forward and occupy the 13th Parliament.
Thanks, Irungu. Yes, I mean, I think the whole issue of women being negotiated out of the elections kind of undermines everything that we're trying to achieve. We've put in place structures that are supposed to introduce women through nominated office, to give them experience and exposure to the structures. But it looks like these structures are now being abused and again manipulated and used for to serve the stronger men. I mean, there's no hiding behind that. Women are being told it's okay, there are these nominated seats. We'll nominate you. There's no guarantee, but then again, there's this, it's like bartering their silence. They have to barter their silence in the hope that they will be considered again. Let's hear from Mercy. Mercy, what are you hearing very specifically from the women you work with? What kind of stories are coming out? What is KEWOPA doing? Are you addressing it? What's actually going on from the nomination stage and even now as we go through to elections?
Okay, thank you very much, Rose. Maybe I'll just begin by taking you back a bit and just to respond to Mildred about the 2/3 gender issue, whether we've reached the 2/3 threshold. We have not. When you look at the numbers currently in Parliament, very quickly, in the National Assembly, we only have 76 women. If it were not for the 47 women reps that the Constitution gives us, which are assured seats, we would only have 23 women who are elected out of the 290 constituencies. At the Senate level, we have only 4 women out of 47 who are elected. When you look at the governor seats also, we only have 3 women governors. That is Kirinyaga, Kitui, and now Nairobi. We lost the Bomet governor. Looking at the Gazette notice that IEBC put out last week for the candidates, we are not going to meet the 2/3 threshold even in this coming election unless we vote in all the women who are in that Gazette list. I doubt we are going to meet the numbers. I was looking at it, and out of the 14,000 candidates that we have on that list, only 1,900 and about 60 are women. And this includes the positions for woman representative, which is in an assured position. So looking at the numbers, I come back now to the statistics. I mean, to the party primaries, which is a big thorn that we've experienced as women candidates. Interacting with women candidates, both the newer aspirants as well as what I would call the seasoned women politicians who are currently either in Parliament, you realize that the party primaries were shambolic across board. We were in Garissa, we've been to Mombasa, we've been to Nakuru recently, and the stories are the party primaries were not, number one, they were not democratic. And this cuts across all the political parties, not just one side of the divide, it's across political parties. There was a lot of violence during that period. And then I think the biggest challenge for, and especially for the seasoned women, is the negotiated democracy that we've seen within the political parties during this period. We have seen a lot of women who wanted, for example, to become governors, being told, no, we'll give you either a Senate seat. I know like 2 or 3 examples where there was some negotiation or consensus, or what you would say the men decided, and they told these women, step down from the gubernatorial contest, we'll give you a Senate speaker or National Assembly speaker or a CS position. And so they stepped down. And then when the party lists came out, you find their names there. So they will end up being nominated as MPs, either in the National Assembly or in the Senate. And I'm not sure even those lists are hold, because I saw IEBC has rejected some of those lists. So we lost a lot of strong women candidates through the negotiated democracy within the political parties. Beyond the negotiated democracy within the political parties, we have the negotiated democracy due to either our religious and cultural contexts. This often happens in the northern region, the north and northeastern part of Kenya, and also I think at the coasts, where the cultural custodians decide who vies for which positions. A lot of the times you find that women are only allocated the seat that the constitution already guarantees. So you'll not find any women candidates. Like in Garissa, there were no women candidates in most of the other seats. That's the MP seat, the Member of National Assembly seat, the governor seat. The MP seat, the only one that we found is Sophia, who's already an incumbent. She's the member for Ijara constituency. And when you listen to her story, even in the last election, the kind of violence she faced, being rejected by her culture, and also within the political party. In the last election, she was elected in a very small party. Now she's in Jubilee. But those are some of the challenges and barriers that the women have been facing during this election. I think the other big one is violence, election violence, and it tends to become aggravated as we head towards the elections. And beyond physical violence, we are seeing a new form. Is it not really new, but I think it's become bigger because of the use of social media and the internet. We are seeing a lot of online violence against women politicians. This is just general politicians. When you look at women in politics, social media spaces, you find that there's a lot of online abuse, harassment, sexualization, nudist comments, trolls. There's the image photobombing, like they zoom into your breasts or your butt, or such kind of things. And this rarely occurs to men. And so a lot of times we'll find that as much as the internet is a good area to talk about your manifesto, sell your ideas and why you're campaigning for a certain seat, you find that women tend then to shy away from this space. And of course, with this kind of harassment, then it creates an unequal platform for women in politics against the men who they are running against. So I think I would open with those three areas: the statistics, we are not yet there, the party primaries, and how the parties can support the women. I think we'll talk about that more as we progress with this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to invite anybody who wants to ask a question to chime in, but let me just start by asking you, why are the women not speaking up about these things? What's going on? I've heard, some stories from some women that they were treated so badly. I've seen some of them shaking in anger, threatening to go to court, but eventually they don't. So it's almost like nothing is happening to address this. Or is there something happening? Mercy.
Maybe I could go first. With my interactions with a lot of women candidates, most of the times they say when they report to the police, these are real examples of stories that I've been told. The women candidates are told, when you get into politics, that is a dirty, the way we say politics is dirty in Kenya, it's a dirty arena. So you have to be able to fight like the way the other men are fighting. So with that kind of a mindset, many women do not report. And when you listen to the police always say, for us to investigate, you have to make an official report and get an OB and all that kind of thing. But if you don't report, nothing will be done. And so women have sort of accepted that this is the nature of politics. And so they will rarely report. So in most instances, what a lot of women are doing is that they either get paid security, extra security for themselves, and especially the more seasoned politicians who are, I would say, a threat to their male counterparts, they will get extra paid security so as to just deal with this kind of harassment. The other thing that I've had stories, KEWOPA runs a mentorship program where the women who are already in parliament talk to the aspiring and upcoming women aspirants. Is that one of the women candidates was sharing that in the 2017 election, she had a safe house, which was outside her constituency. So, for example, if I'm vying in Nairobi, let's say Starehe constituency, my safe house is in Dagoretti or maybe in Kiambu, you know, so that at the end of the day, that's where they go with their team to debrief, just to stay out of, you know, their area of operations. And they consider that a safe house because of the kind of violence she had faced. People had known this is where they go, and every evening after the campaigns, this is where they go and debrief. So she had to actually get a house outside of her constituency where she's able to, she feels a bit safe. So yeah, so there, I think the violence has been normalized within the political arena, and I don't know what are the better ways that this can be handled. But the women candidates sort of do not believe in the police 100%. Let me not say they don't actually believe, but not 100%. They don't feel like the police will actually act. Yeah.
Just for your information, before the next question comes in, I was talking to some senior person at the Communications Authority, and in terms of digital violence, they actually have a structure that everybody participates on, that it's a rapid response structure. It's called KE-CERT. It works globally to track down digital offenders. So I think it's good to kind of, you know, harness some of these tools, and they say they're able to respond faster than the police and the other bureaucratic structures. That's just for your information, and I'll send you that link.
Cool. I think a couple of points that strike me from this, from Mercy's comments, you know. First one is really that what we're describing are election offenses. I mean, just to state the obvious, there are laws that have been created specifically to ensure that there is a level playing field. And, it doesn't matter if we declare that, our politics are like, like a farmyard or a pigsty. There are laws that we created to essentially elevate the level of politics to a point where all citizens, all human beings can run, as long as they meet the minimum threshold of the requirements for those positions. And therefore, the use of either state power, or the use of criminal gangs or militias, or the use of bots and online kind of trolls is just unacceptable in many ways. And I think what we're not seeing, and I think this is probably behind Rose's question, is we're not seeing a documented evidence or situation alerts coming out that are simply saying in the last month, X number of women experienced the following election offenses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if possible, beginning to name the names of the people who have gone through this. Now, obviously, part of the way that the negotiations took place over the primaries was, I buy your silence, I buy your campaign, you keep quiet, we may do something about you when we're making nominations. But, if we can't get, names and testimonies, and for that matter, occurrence book reports, or reports that have gone to police stations, at least we should be able to gather the data to show some trends. The Kenya National Commission for Human Rights in the last 2 weeks released a couple of trends, and I went back to it as you were speaking, Mercy, because I was trying to see whether they had a gendered analysis, and they didn't, at least in terms of what came through the press. Maybe there's a bit more. There were 47 incidences of the misuse of public resources. There were 149 cases of inducement, bribery, and intimidation. There were 24 cases of violence, and so on, right? And the insecurity in the 9 counties are well documented. Now, what we're missing really is a gendered analysis of what this means, right? So I think a very clear line of action would be either for Amnesty or KEWAPA to write formally to the Kenya National Commission and say, are you going to produce gendered analysis during these elections? And again, what is the role of the National Gender and Equality Commission? So is NGEC doing the same thing? Can they release the same figures so that we actually in real time are beginning to raise the awareness of the law enforcement agencies that actually there is a missing in terms of their protection of the electoral space for women candidates? So I think that's one, that's a thought that I have, just in terms of a practical, proposal in terms of going forward. But I think the thing that, we have to, I guess the last one is we have to avoid the situation of human rights organizations releasing reports on what happened 3 months ago. So reports on the violence, need to be essentially, I guess, verified and released publicly in the moment, right? Because for every moment that we forget to mention or we don't mention, it creates 3 more moments out there, right? So really getting kind of granular with each of the incidents will save lives and will save careers, right? So I think that's there.
Mildred.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And so wonderful to pick up these points from both Irungu and Mercy. And I'm sitting here thinking, Rose, I'm thinking that going back to the root of the problem, we know it's patriarchy. We ask ourselves, why is it difficult for women to stand out, to go out and report those women aspirants and say, I'm being violated, I've been sexually violated, for the same reason that prosecuting GBV and SGBV cases goes down to women being the stigma of not being able to stand out and say, look, I was attacked by this man, they raped me or whatever. So it becomes one of those issues that women are still fighting to break. And it's connected even on the political platform. Yes, it is. Many women seeking nominations will tell you, for me to get this nomination, the road I walked, what these men were demanding is unprintable. And you understand that that was actually a root of sexual violation. And you can see also the issue of security. And Mercy, you're absolutely right. My experience with women parliamentarians or aspirants is that you put down a budget, and for the women aspirants, 80% of the budget goes to security. So you remain with 20%. What can you do with 20% in terms of really rolling down your ground, your hands on the ground? And they have to do it because security is key and it's extremely critical, especially for them. I think as I'm listening to us discussing, I am thinking of us as stakeholders, as policymakers, as mobilizers. When we are looking at the issue of WPP, of women's political participation, we have to be able to connect the dots to the what. Irungu captured it very well when he said, okay, fine, we know it's patriarchy that stops it, we know, but connecting the dots there so that we can understand, but why is this woman so timid and is not coming up and talking? But why? It all goes down to that one. I am such an advocate for, please, let's connect these dots to this point where we are having people say, why didn't she report? Why didn't she come forward? It's the same reasons when we are fighting all these cases of GBV. So these are interesting, very important conversations. I always say, when you see a woman up there, she has gone up there, please just be a little gentle. Her journey, if she really was to tell you how far she has walked to get there, or the battles she has fought, you wouldn't believe. So I'm always very, very, very compassionate towards, it doesn't matter from what platform. I say, I don't know what journey she has walked for her to get there, but I'm sure if I sit for a coffee with her, she'll tell you, my sister, if I start explaining to you. So every woman political participant, aspirant, has a story, and the story is not always rosy. It's a story of battles, of fights. Many of them are packed in different layers, and it's diverse because they are women. So I think having that consciousness as we look into our issues as stakeholders really helps us to put it into perspective. It is sad, but what I'm grateful for, Rose and team, is that we are at a place in our country now where we are thrashing these issues at the table repeatedly. and we have laws to invoke and say, no, 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 but we have this in the law. Why are you not applying it? And we are also becoming bolder in compelling law enforcement to act where they ought to act. And for this, I'm grateful. When you look and compare to other African countries, we know they sort of look up to us. Now, we are not there yet, but I think it's important that we are in this phase where we are gradually getting a grip of all these things.
Yeah, I think it's, sorry, Irungu, you wanted to add something?
I was actually moved by what Mildred was saying. As you were talking, Mildred, I was remembering this study that was done by Kictonet that looked at women politicians trolled on the internet, and they looked at three very prominent women. I think there was Millie Odhiambo and Susan Kihika, and I think the other study was about Martha Karua, and really just what it takes for them to continue to be visible, to be to be vocal, and to continue to engage using the social media. So I think it's really great that KEWOPA and UN Women and others have been providing support for women candidates, because I think without that it would be extremely difficult to kind of face the thunderstorm of patriarchy that just shows up around these electoral moments, to remove women from the possibility of being able to lead this country. So I think we just have to also acknowledge all those organizations that have stood behind women at this time,
I think, I agree. And I think we often forget that they too are in dangerous situation and very often attacked for the work that they do. But as Mildred said, I think it's important that we're having the conversation and beginning to understand that there are actually resources around and there are opportunities around. And can we begin to collate it? Because I know that there's some organizations that have nationwide monitors, on the ground, collecting data. Organizations like the Women Lawyers, FIDA, they're in all counties on the ground. Can we begin to work together to bring that data to provide factual evidence of what's actually happening? We seem to have assumed that after 2010, because we have a new constitution and it says that women should be equal, that it's going to happen. But I think there were skills and things that used to happen before, that coordinated packaging of what's actually happening to women and highlighting it through the media. We, as media women, also used to highlight that. I think we're not doing it effectively anymore. And now we're listening to these stories again as if it's a new story and we're starting again, but we've been doing this work. And how do we take it forward from there? I'm wondering, the structures that we created, like the nomination structures, are again being abused. How do we stop that? Is there a way? Is there any thinking? Is there any dialogue within KEWOPA and others? Because now that the parties are now using it as a resource that they can promise to women. It's not theirs to promise, this is guaranteed by the Constitution. If they're going to offer women something, they should offer something else, not this thing. But it seems that this has just become another bargaining tool for political parties. Mercy.
So the nominations has been a big issue. And I think since the last election, that's the 2013 election, you remember when the first election, that's after the 2010 constitution, and we got the first lot of nominations, especially at the county assembly. A lot of women were nominated in the county assemblies, of course, to fill up the 2/3 principle. And a lot of women then were being called flower. There came names like flower girls, top ups. Those were some of the names, and they were being called tokens. And it's because a lot of the nominations, I would not say, maybe not a lot, but there were cases where politicians nominated either their friends, some their wives. There are in some counties where there were instances of wives, cousins, sisters. And I think that's what then began the discussion of the politicians are nominating people who do not deserve to be in those seats. And so in the last parliament, in the 11th parliament, one of the discussions that Kewopa had started as we were advocating for the 2/3 gender bill in parliament, one of the discussions was, can we have then a formula for nominations? And one of the options that we were looking at is women who are being nominated, or even men, because there are men who are also nominated in those political seats, be people who have actually participated in elections or people who are active in within the political parties, so that it's somebody who's actually even has an interest. Because in the 11th parliament, there were people who just saw their names gazetted in the newspapers and they didn't even know, So yeah, the structures I think have failed. So I think we need to craft better ways of nominations. One of the ways was to bring in the party lists before the elections. But even in the last election, we did that, but you could see they were still interfered with even after the elections, because once some people lose, then the politicians, the ones who own the parties, still for some reason, some people are sneaked through, and that's why you see a lot of litigation in the courts that my name, I was number 2 on the list, number 3 and 4 were nominated, and they jumped my name. Yeah, so there really needs to be a better way to do this. Political parties, of course, have to put in place clear measures. And of course, IEBC, because IEBC are the ones where the political party lists are sent to, they should, follow the guidelines, so that once the party lists, because like right now, they're supposed to already be at IEBC. Once the election is done, then they follow what has been selected. But there has to be, of course, measures put in place when the party lists are being developed, because the problem also begins there. So we need to tighten, those ends are the political parties themselves. Yeah.
Sounds like we need to tighten political parties. Forget about the list. I mean, even the way you describe them, you say personal property of politicians, and it's one of the things that has always kind of irked is the reality that our political parties they're just seen as a vehicle. They're not really robust institutional structures that contribute to the thinking of, development directions and crafting, real strategies and strategic directions for our development. So, I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds like the problem is we don't have political parties. We have things we call political parties, but they're not functional. They're not really functional.
I think, Rose, and I really appreciate what Mercy has said. We have things masquerading as political parties. But you know what? As Mercy speaks, I think about what the role of the civil society is and the media, the watchdog role of the civil society and the media. I see a situation whereby there's the opportunity to really heighten our watchdog role, especially during these periods. I mean, when Katiba Institute, for example, took the IEBC to task about the 2/3 rule when it gender rule when it comes to nominations, I was so glad. I was grateful. I said, "Hey, we need the watchdogs who are going to say, I'm taking this path, and I want to see what is going to come out of it." So I see, because political parties can't do it alone. And if it is left on their own for them as political parties to do it, they will not do it. So therefore now the civil society, the media comes in to be relentless in saying, no, wait a minute, we have this law, you have to adhere. So the watchful dog role, the conscious, and we have to be very deliberate and intentional as civil society to really follow up these things, to say, we are putting our finger here because we have this law and the parties have to bow to it. and then challenge even our judicial systems, so that we can say we are bringing this forward because of ABCD, invoking and testing the laws which we are so proud of. I think it's possible. I don't know. I want to ask, especially Irungu, the kind of challenges that maybe can be faced when you're challenging political parties who are not subscribing to what they ought to subscribe to in terms of law. How difficult is it? How challenging is it? Because it's easier for us to say, let's go for the political parties, but there might be challenges.
I mean, I think there will be challenges. I mean, any institution that has absorbed power to the detriment of democratic debate, democratic inclusion, will resist it, right? So I think we have to start off by saying that there are vested interests, and the vested interests usually relate to keeping the spoils of an election to a very small number of people. And that's the nature of it. But the thing about the constitutional order that we voted for in 2010 was that we said that everybody mattered, right? That all Kenyans, all people matter, and all must have access and equal opportunity to, and that's the reason we have Article 1, right? So it doesn't matter in some ways to me whether there will be resistance or not. That just becomes part of the terrain that we need to navigate in order to pressurize parties to do the right things. I do feel like somehow with the primaries, we missed an opportunity to remind the political parties that actually the primaries are not about the elite, the political class, dividing out positions to themselves. They're really about citizens beginning to, own the political parties that are set up. I mean, I had a personal experience where, a year ago, I was called by someone in one of the prominent political parties for lunch, and he said to me, Irungu, I haven't seen you for a long time, come for lunch. We went for lunch, and after pleasantries and a kind of dissecting the country, he said, would you like to come and be the policy director in our party? And I said, thank you very much. I'm currently very happy at Amnesty, and I do feel that there is a role for civic organizations, and there are not a lot of us now that are noisy and abrasive, and that's my role, at least in this election. And the lunch finished very amicable, and we all went in both our separate directions. And then 4 months later, when the expose broke that many of us had been placed in political parties, I thought, let me just check and see which political party I may have been registered to, and discovered that I'd been registered to the party that I was being asked to become a party director. So it wasn't random. It was actually this person went through the list of their party and said, oh, there's a guy called Irungu. Why don't we ask him to play a role within the party? He's already a member. So yeah. I immediately went and I removed my name as it was made possible. And I then thought, if I'm going to be assigned a political party, perhaps I should join one, right? At least let me take back that choice, right? Because it seems like possibly any of the security guards in the buildings that we go in and out are assigning us political parties, just willy-nilly, right? So I figured, okay, let me go register. I tried to register. I tried. I couldn't. Like the political party, and it's an established political party, and it had a website where you just put in your name, you put in your ID number and whatever. It just kept coming back negative. So I gave up after a while, and I thought, okay, fine, let's see which other party I will be registered to. But the point I'm trying to make is that actually to become an active member of a political party in this country is not easy, right? And that's why the political parties are essentially special purpose vehicles for elections. And in many cases, the party itself is not even immune to, its own mutilation if it is felt by the owners of the parties that the party is not strong enough or robust enough to run an election. They will just form an alliance with 6 other parties, create a new thing altogether, and that thing will basically go through an election cycle. It won't even survive until the end of the election of the next administration. And I think that's the tragedy of our politics, and that's why we have to, as individuals, begin to demand that if we believe in a party-based democracy, then the parties have to work first and foremost. And maybe trying to fix it 3 months before an election is too late. Maybe actually we need to think about, going into the political parties after the elections and really just sit in them and organize them. right? There should be debates on all kinds of policy issues. And they need to be localized. I mean, there's some parties that are single issue parties. I mean, like the Green Africa Party, for example, it just focuses on conservation, right? Maybe it's time for an all-woman party, purely to create the conversation around, women's empowerment. Why not? I would join.
I think it's illegal to do that, though, I think, in terms of discrimination against a gender. So
the gender
yeah, we could give it, we could call it that, and yeah. But I wanted to ask Mercy, as we're winding down in our last 10 minutes. There's been a lot of talk about this being a consensus election, whatever that may mean. What do you understand it to mean, and how is it playing out and affecting women's participation?
Thank you, Rose. Actually, when Irungu talked about the coalitions, I just remembered one of the other things I forgot to mention earlier on, and of course, to answer your question, is during the consensus and the coalitions, we tend to lose a lot of women, because women get swallowed up in those big political parties. When if 10 political parties come, for example, to form Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, you find that women get lost within those coalitions. And when those coalitions come together, it becomes about the principals, the owners of the party, who, when you look at the political parties in Kenya, I think we only have 2 principals who are women. I think that's Martha Karua and what's her name?
Julia.
This other lady, Julia, yes. Those are the only 2. Yeah, exactly. So when these coalitions come together, that's one of the main areas that we lose women. So also, now to address your question, what do I understand by consensus? Sometimes it could be deception. When it comes to women in politics, I would say sometimes it's deception. And why I say this is because of the stories that I have heard from women in politics. And when I say women in politics, I mean now the seasoned women in politics who actually do have tickets right now from their parties. But after the party primaries, I remember I was in parliament in one of those days, and we were having discussions, and I'm asking them, how was the party primaries? And they're like, Mercy, if I was to do this again, I would not do it with this party. Of course, I won't mention parties for the sake of confidentiality, but it cuts across board, both from especially the 2 main coalitions, that's Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. The political parties, the consensus, the negotiations, table negotiations did not work, even for the senior women politicians. So I think in future we need to look for other mechanisms that will work for women to participate better in politics. I don't know how that is going to work, but maybe what Irungu is saying about a women's political party, although I know the Registrar of Political Parties has time and again said that is illegal, but I think we need to see how can women better participate, especially within the political parties, so that we are not losing out. And you see, when the coalitions come, they come in during the last minute, so there's no time to recover. So once we lose these women, it's now until the next election cycle. So yeah, I think we need to either have better ways to regulate political parties and the coalitions, maybe the time duration, maybe earlier on before the elections, so that women are able to participate effectively in these processes.
It sounds like there may be something missing from the coalition laws, in terms of, but the coalition law should be subject to the Constitution, which should cover whatever. But anyway, I think that, like you say, there's something missing that we need to address, that needs to be addressed in terms of forming coalitions and negotiation to ensure that the diversity prescribed by the Constitution holds, even in the new arrangements. So we're coming round to the end, and I think I'm just going to ask everybody if they have any parting thoughts? I'll start with Irungu, then Mildred, and we'll finish with you, Mercy. In terms of delivering, healthy political party participation for women, so that it contributes in turn to a healthy election.
So my parting shot really is getting the monitoring organizations to start, I guess, disaggregating the data in a way in which we can actually get a singular focus on the experience of women during these elections, not just the candidates, but women voters as well. I think that's my parting shot. I'll be with the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights on Human Rights chairperson tomorrow. So I'll raise this with her directly, and thank you very much for provoking that thought.
Well, thank you. I'm just thinking that we have to raise the bar on mentorship of women in political participation, that we cannot quit it. We can't do enough of it. We have to keep doing. We have to keep mentoring. I've been in a space once, I can't remember which year, when the older women in politics sat with the younger women in politics, and the conversation went like this. In 1968, when we were trying, and we were all flawed, like we are picking examples from the 60s, not even the 70s, and we thought we knew about how women actually interact when it comes to the political spectrum and the challenges. I think we need to strengthen mentorship, and very intentional mentorship. We saw this week with Justina, Ruth, and Honorable Martha, raising the bar for every one of us and facing the cameras in difficult platforms and holding the space right through it. Many women aspirants were glued to their screens, and they do wish that they can be mentored to get to that point. I know KEWOPA has programs on mentorship, and I know we have collaborated with other organizations on it. My push really is that we become even more intentional on grabbing the woman from Tana River, from Uko Ainabkoi, from down in I don't know where, from the border in Kuria, bring that woman and say, I am walking with this woman. Once in a women's forum, we asked, who are you mentoring? We were asking seasoned women politicians, and we said, but who are you specifically more mentoring? And you can see, of course, they are busy and everything, but as women, it has to be very deliberate. It has to be very deliberate. Hold someone and just walk with her. It's the same way Honorable Cecily Mbarire says, there's no way I would stand here without Honorable Ngilu putting me in her handbag and walking with me through and through. And I love it, because that's the reality of mentorship. So for me, as we are getting to this point where we are really, I feel like women are really, we're elbowing our space. Probably we haven't sat properly. We haven't. Although this week I know I tweeted and I said, when the women stood, the men realized they're not taller. So, and that's a good thing. I felt like saying that, but I think we still have to do more in terms of very intentional, deliberate mentorship that is sustainable. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So I thank you for this. I love the space, and really we should continue with this. I affirm you, KEWOPA. I know it's been a battle, that it's been hard. Mercy, you fight every day, but here we are. At least women, yes, political aspirants, women politicians have a space in KEWOPA where they can come and put down their bag and say, what? And get it all out. It helps a lot. I'm very, very positive.
Thanks, Mildred. And Mercy, take us out.
Thank you very much, Mildred. I agree with you about the mentorship, because that's one of the things that we hear every day. We interact with women aspirants, and especially at the county level with new women aspirants. I think my parting shot would be there still exists a lot of formal and informal barriers for women participating in politics. And I think we need then to create necessary measures so that women are able to participate effectively, equally. There's a level playing field for them, so that they're able to jump, these barriers, these hurdles, and at the end of it, that's how we are going to increase even the numbers. Maybe, God knows, not in 100 years, as they say, maybe in the next 5 years or so, Yeah, so I think that's my parting shot. Let's remove both the formal and informal barriers for women participating in politics. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for that very, very enlightening conversation. And I think I like to just remind us that a lot has been achieved, even though we seem to be trying to unravel problems. Let's reiterate, we have 3 deputy presidential candidates as women. And that is not a mean achievement. It has never happened. It was a joy to see them on TV, and it was a joy to see them articulate clearly an agenda for this nation. Intelligent, beautiful women. Next week, we want to talk to another group of women, and this time young women, the youth. We hear the youth are boycotting this election for their own reasons. We want to hear from the young women, their views, their agenda, what their generation is thinking. And so we will be back here again on Thursday, same time, and to look at that. But for today, I just want to thank Mildred for joining us, as usual. Powerful conversation, your transformational language, bringing it to us. Irungu, a stalwart in the civil society. As Mildred started off saying, everybody knows Irungu. And Mercy, thank you for the work that you do and for standing with women. We hope that, you've educated us a lot. We hope that we added something to your struggle to work your way through that quagmire that you sometimes find yourself in, but brilliant job that you're doing. And the numbers keep growing. So let's not we're not beating ourselves up. We just want it to get better. Right. Queen Mother, Professor Dashanaba King in the background, keeping us running. I don't know if you want to show your face as we leave and just say hello. Hey, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Queen Mother.
That's what we bring to the table. BongaDadaBonga. Speak, sister, speak. That is what's happening here. Thank each of you for being here. Now, Irungu, in no sense are we calling you a woman when we say speak, sister, speak. But I'm saying I am delighted that these women have chose to step on this platform and speak out. You know, it reminds me so much of some of the things we had to go through in America as Black Americans trying to get our space, fighting segregation. You know what I'm saying? But what I have to say to you is keep fighting. Don't stop. Even though it may appear that nothing is happening, something is happening because Mercy is here. A younger woman who's in a very strategic position. And we want her to continue. We want her to be protected. And somehow it's almost like we need an army of women to be there. So when our women are out there fighting, we have a way. Now, obviously, I've been involved with promoting female boxing on the professional level. I'm not asking us to do that, but somehow we've got to pull together the force we need so the women won't feel frightened. Somehow we've got to continue to encourage them because you don't know what they go through in a day. And I'm telling you, they do go through some things. So we thank each of them for standing there, for being there. And maybe when they go to the police to report what's happened, they don't go alone. Yeah. Maybe they need some other women to go with them, like me.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey.
I've seen a lovely message to take us out from Sosas Mudave, who says women must be supported everywhere, for they are the life of the country. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful message. So thank you all. Thank you all, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Viewers.